the death toll rises. As the battles intensify and threaten a growing number of Republic worlds, planets are left to survive on their own, while the Jedi struggle to fight a war on many fronts. A series of medical stations have been established as a lifeline for those in need, but the facilities are easy prey for Separatist attacks. After losing contact with the medical station orbiting Felucia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano are sent to investigate.
Greetings, Bucketheads! Mevar Tigar. Welcome to the 82nd Weequay Pirate Repelling episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. So happy to have you back for another exciting episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Rewatch Mondays. We are almost there. We have almost completed our journey through Season 2 of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and, we're in an interesting place. We're between, we're after the Mandalorian plot episodes, but we're building up to some big finishes here for Season 2, where we are going to get to connect with some fan favorites, see where they are in the Star Wars landscape, and it's going to be really exciting. And this episode, we're kind of kicking it off. We're kind of reconnecting with the Star Wars underworld, and I've mentioned before on the show, one of my favorite elements of the Star Wars galaxy is the underworld. It is the bounty hunters and the crime lords and the crime bosses and the smugglers and the rogues, the rapscallions of the Star Wars galaxy. So I am a big fan of this episode and a lot of the stuff that's coming up here in the next few weeks on the show. This episode gets off to an interesting start because for the first time in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, we have a bit of a title card before we get our Star Wars, and a long time ago, guys, the whole Star Wars spiel. We get a whole totally different thing. This episode dedicated to the memory of Akira Kurosawa, who, again, a legendary director, a Japanese film director, whose influence is felt the world around in cinema. And his films in particular, a big influence on George Lucas when he was developing Star Wars. Obviously, Kurosawa's film A Hidden Fortress is a big influence on the first Star Wars movie. But other aspects of Kurosawa creep in a lot of different ways to Star Wars. And this episode is very much the Seventh Samurai, with some bounty hunters and some Jedi in the mix. And we'll talk about that a little bit more because that Kurosawa love, shines through in The Mandalorian. When we broke down those episodes of The Mandalorian back in Season 1 and in Season 2, Kurosawa references throughout that series. We can reference those as we watch this episode too. But again, this is one of the first times they get to pay a direct homage to Akira Kurosawa. Again, such a big influence on the young George Lucas and many other young filmmakers. So much so that they're still paying respects and homages to the man to this day, especially here in Star Wars. And we will get to all of that very soon. I am so excited that you are here, and remember, the best way to support us is or even get a hold of us. Reach out to us via social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert, if possible or so inclined, and you're on Apple Podcasts where it's easier. 5-star reviews. They help independent shows like us stand out and fight against the evil empire, because that's what this show's all about. We have to stand up against the tyranny of Palpatine's boot across our necks. We can't do it. And we can't do it without your help. So thank you so much for being here. Old listeners, new listeners, I hope you're all having fun, and I thank you so much for going on this journey with us as we rewatch Star Wars: The Clone Wars. All right, let's get into it. Like I said, I kind of set up the episodes already, but let's get into the show proper, and you know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
That's Felucia, dead ahead. But where's the medical station? I don't see anything on my scanners. Wait, there's something. Vulture droids.
Hang on.
All right, Season 2, Episode 17, Bounty Hunters. Original air date, April 2nd, 2010. And once again, dedicated to the memory of Akira Kurosawa, the legendary Japanese filmmaker. We will discuss a little bit more the Seven Samurai influences. It's very much a direct homage. And we've all seen that Seven Samurai being so heavily influential in many movies and many films, and so it's a plot that you will all be very, very familiar with. And that the plot for this week's episode is Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka crash land on Felucia and reluctantly join 4 bounty hunters defending a village from Hondo Ohnaka's pirate gang. So our good friend Hondo Ohnaka is back, and he's got a pirate gang, and they're on Felucia because these farmers are growing a very valuable herb. That's a healing herb, if you will. And in a war, you have a lot of need for those sort of things. So the Ohnaka gang looking to make a big score here by pillaging these pirates, by pillaging these farmers of their valuable harvest. Let's talk about how this episode opens, though. You know, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka are out to investigate. Felucia's supposed to have one of these medical plants that they talked about in the opening of the episode. How big of a scumbag are the Separatists? Like at this point in the series, I mean, we saw an episode like this back in season 1, or maybe it was earlier in season 2. I can't remember exactly. I want to say it was in season 1 though. Again, trying to get to a medical station where wounded clone soldiers are being treated and taken care of, and the Separatists, I get it. Like they're the cold, emotionless droid army of the Separatists, but we've seen the leadership of the Separatists. Like they're led by actual beings with thoughts and feelings and emotions. They're not Cylons in that sense, where it's like all humanity must be extinguished. No. Like you would think that a medical facility is out of bounds. That's off limits. That's a no-go as far as that goes. But the Separatists are vicious, and they have no qualms whatsoever about attacking these medical stations, destroying these medical stations with impunity, as seems to be the case with the station that our heroes are attempting to check in on. They get there, and there's nothing to be found of it. In fact, there's only the Separatist Vulture droid emplacement, a Vulture droid ship emplacement, I should say. Clarify that a little bit more. That promptly begins to attack our heroes, and leads to a great reference, or not a reference, excuse me, a great observation by the negotiator, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Check it out.
I guess we know what happened to the medical station.
There it is.
That's not good!
They took out the plasma conduit.
You thinking what I'm thinking? Almost certainly not.
Looks like we're doing this the hard way. Starting ejection sequence.
How come every time you fly, we crash?
It's not my fault, it's the ship.
There we go. I just wanted to play that little clip there because it was humorous, all right? And we'll get into. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm really excited about this episode. We haven't even talked about our behind the scenes team. Once again, this episode directed by Stuart Lee, written by Carl Ellsworth, with Drew Z. Greenberg as our story editor, and our big cast of characters this week. James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan Kenobi and a pirate trooper. Matt Lanter is Anakin Skywalker and Muck Monkey. Anna Graves is Sugi and Rumi. Ashley Eckstein is Ahsoka and a village child. Jim Cummings returns as Hondo Ohnaka. Greg Baldwin is Cassius, Serapis, and Guam. Steven Stanton is Delaney and a pirate scout. Dave Filoni, that's right, Dave Filoni, the man, the architect of modern Star Wars on television, is the voice of Embo in this episode. Steps out from behind the scenes to take center stage in a voice role as Embo the bounty hunter. And of course, back again, Tom Kane is our narrator. Our Jedi Fortune Cookie this week: courage makes heroes, but trust builds friendships. And again, we've already kind of dived into the episode at the beginning here, the opening segment of how our heroes end up marooned on Felucia and find themselves in this village in desperate need of help as they're being besieged by Hondo and Naka's gang. This episode, as we heard from the voiceover too, the first episode in about 5-6 weeks, where we are reunited with Ahsoka Tano, and get to spend some time with Ahsoka once again. But don't get too attached to Ahsoka because she goes on another little break next week. So it's nice to see Ahsoka get back to her and Anakin once again, sort of squabbling back and forth with one another as their ship, under attack by these Vulture droids, is about to crash into the surface of Felucia. What's interesting here, what I thought was really interesting here is I don't think we had seen up to this point the way that ejecting from a Star Wars vessel and how that works out, particularly in this time of the Clone Wars. The World War II references we've talked about very heavily, and the way that sort of shapes the way a lot of the Star Wars feel, if you will, the aesthetics of it, if you will. Now getting to see pilots ejecting, and instead of having what we would consider to be a typical sort of parachute-esque landing, what happens is, as Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka eject, they are enveloped in sort of like this giant rubber/flubber ball that encases them for a safe landing as they kind of come down to the surface. And much like a weeble wobble, these balls there, and they rock back and forth, but they don't fall over, they don't fall down. You come down on the planet, you land on the surface, and it's apparently weighted correctly so that you're sitting up as you depart your ejection pod. Basically, it sort of becomes a pod around your chair. It's a very unique, interesting thing, and again, one of the first times I recall seeing a pilot eject in this fashion. If I've made a mistake about that, by all means, please reach out and let me know that I have goofed. So we're back on Felucia. We've been to this planet before. We've seen it in the live-action films, most prominently in Episode 3 in Revenge of the Sith. But let's kind of give a little bit of a recap on Felucia. Let's talk a little bit more about it, because Felucia is a very interesting place. It's very visually striking, and you can't help but pay attention to the things that are going on there. And as we're going to play a clip in a moment, lots of creatures, lots of life forms. So a planet that's probably heavy in the Force with the amount of life that moves about on its surface. So this is straight from the Star Wars wiki. So check it out, Felucia. Felucia was a remote world in the Felucia system, overrun with thick, colorful, and humid jungle made up by a unique combination of fungal species. The jungle was punctuated with small farming villages populated by the planet's native Felucians, as well as occasional cities such as the capital, Kiwi-Tuo. Felucia was governed by the Commerce Guild, who represented the planet's corporate interests on the galactic stage. The world was a hotbed of life, and several non-sentient species also inhabited the world, including the Gelagrubs, jungle rancors, and Timus. Despite its perceived insignificance, its important location and resources, including the healing plant Nicillin, featured prominently in this episode of the show, led to several conflicts both in orbit and on the planet's surface. It's also primarily located along the Perlemain trade route, which also helped to be a major battleground in the Outer Rim section of the Clone Wars. Remember the Outer Rim sieges, something that Obi-Wan talks about a lot in the films. So that's where we are. That's what we're doing with Felucia. What we're going to have happen is, these big creatures. I believe this is those rancors they were talking about, these non-native kind of rancors. Our heroes come across them as they are attempting to figure out where they are and get back on course. Like we got to figure out how we're going to get off this planet. Let's see what's going on. Which, of course, leads to a little bit of a disagreement. Let's hear it out.
You don't want to scare them.
We can't just wander around aimlessly. We need a plan.
You always taught me to go on instinct, and my instincts taught me to go that way.
No, that doesn't seem right. I think we should go this way.
Why do you even ask for my opinion? You never do things my way.
We crashed the ship your way.
Very funny. I see your sense of humor survived the landing.
It's about the only thing.
If you two are done arguing, I think there's some smoke on the horizon, which means people, and away off this planet.
So they begrudgingly admit that Ahsoka is right, and it's time to move on and check out this settlement. Like we talked about, you're going to find, our heroes are going to come across the crop of the Nicillin, how valuable it is. Obi-Wan makes a mention of that. And they begin to kind of check out this village, and everyone's hiding. The native Felucian farmers are hiding. They don't know why. They don't know what's going on. And this is when we first encounter our bounty hunters, who these Felucian farmers have hired to protect them from a pirate gang. Now, we don't know it's Hondo Ohnaka's gang just yet. We will find that out shortly. But I did want to kind of go over our gang of bounty hunters here. So we meet first. We meet Sugi, who is a Zabrak, an Iridonian Zabrak, a female. She is in several more episodes of the show, so I don't want to talk too much about the role this character will play later on, but she does have a role to play in more episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, as well as in our sort of newer expanded universe series of novels, the Chuck Wendig ones in particular, the Empire's End series. If you've read that book, you will know the character Jazamari. Sugi is Jazz's, aunt. I think I got that right. Yeah. Sugi is the aunt of Jazamari in those books, the one that got Jazz into massive debts that she's attempting to pay off in those books. This is her aunt, and we meet her in this episode of the show, and we'll talk a little bit more. Again, Sugi's a character we visit down the road, so I don't want to say too much about her, but she does have a connection to more characters down the line, which is very, very interesting. We'll also meet Rumi, who's a Frank from the world of Gaerobe, and she is a female as well. Now, listen, spoiler alerts, this is her first and only appearance in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I will leave it at that for you to infer what may happen down the road. We are also going to meet Seraphis, who's a Sisori male. When we first are introduced to him in this episode, he's in a very giant, very powerful, like mech suit, very intimidating, very striking. But we find out that Seraphis and Sisori in general, his people are very, very small. They're very diminutive. But that does not mean they are not formidable in one sense or another. That is something that we've learned from Star Wars throughout the entire saga. That just because something looks small and diminutive does not mean you can get one over on it very easily. And Seraphis also a member of Sugi's gang down the line, and will also return. And then the most visually interesting character from this episode, and again will become a recurring character, and I think a character who has a bit of a fan following about him, is Embo. Embo is the Kyuzo from Phaetrong. He is a male. He has a sweet metal helmet hat. It's basically a hat. I mean, it looks like a big giant sun visor. But he can use it as a shield. He can use it as a weapon. He has a crossbow. That's fun too. And he's a very formidable fighter. At one point in the Star Wars galaxy, he's considered the second most formidable bounty hunter, behind only Cad Bane at one particular point. But he kind of throws his lot in with Sugi, and is kind of like his. Sugi's first call is often to Embo, because they have a good relationship, and I assume they profit when they work together. So a mutually beneficial relationship. And again, Embo with a really, really neat look, and his species, again, a Kyuzo, named after a character from the Seven Samurai, and I think he has a sort of samurai-esque look about him. You'll have seen him in many, many things. He shows up in a lot more episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars down the road. He figures into he's graffiti art in Star Wars Rebels. You know, our favorite character, Sabine Wren, is painted him in a couple things in Star Wars Rebels, and he's featured in another book, in the Dark Disciple book about Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. He's in that as well. So Embo has sort of grown as his status has grown, I should say, over time. So this is where we meet him for the very, very first time, and it's like I said, he's a neat character. He's very visually interesting, and he will get into conflict with our Jedi heroes down the road. Whether on his own or as part of Sugi's gang moving forward. So yeah, these are interesting characters, and it's always fun when you get some interesting characters that are going to kind of recur down the road as the show progresses. So I really, really like that. All right, so our heroes come across these bounty hunters. They get off to a little bit of a shaky start, but they eventually realize that these are not the Jedi are not the pirates. The bounty hunters are not there to necessarily harm them. They have been hired to protect these farmers. Obi-Wan believes in them to be extorting the farmers, which is very interesting, and puts him at odds with Sugi right off the bat, which is again an interesting dynamic as we move forward. But let's get the math out of the way here. 4 bounty hunters, 3 Jedi equals 7 samurai. And there we go. What I'm going to play now for you is a clip of Obi-Wan explaining why they can't get involved in this, which I don't agree with Obi-Wan on this one. I know I'm a big Obi-Wan guy. I'm a supporter of the man. I believe in him, but his sort of staunch, the sort of like belief that he has is like, well, we can't bother ourselves with this. We have to do our duty thing. Is like, I get it. Obi-Wan's about duty, but like we've talked about on some other episodes of the show, helping people. That's the real duty that the Jedi have, right? It's not to the political whims of the Republic and things like that. Like, don't get me started. Don't let me go down that road. Let's focus on this episode. But here's Obi-Wan attempting to explain to Anakin and Ahsoka why they cannot involve themselves in this matter.
Master, these farmers are in trouble. Why can't we help them?
Believe me, Ahsoka, I would like nothing more. However, we need to report that the medical station has been destroyed. If we stay too long, the Separatists will show up looking for us here.
But...
Better they get robbed by pirates than attract the interest of General Grievous and his horde.
Pirates! 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 The pirates are back!
All right, we'll pause it right there. So it's not that Obi-Wan doesn't have a point, but it's a very complicated issue, and I tend to side more with Ahsoka on this one. That helping these people was the right move. They can worry about the Separatists at another time if it comes to pass. That's what happens. Obi-Wan's is a worst case scenario, but there's nothing to say that would be the way it plays out. Now I do want to play the sequence where Hondo makes his arrival in the village, and let's check that out next.
There is nothing here that's yours, unless you're here to buy it.
Buy it? Ha ha ha! Kenobi, Skywalker, I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Hondo.
You know each other?
Of course we do. Tell them how far back we go, Kenobi.
Too far, I'm afraid.
And here I thought we were friends.
If you're truly interested in friendship, Hondo, might I suggest you stop threatening these farmers?
Threatening them? Oh, please tell me you have not been listening to this bounty hunting scum.
Scum. We're just here to help them protect what's theirs.
Oh, come, my dear. How much are they paying you? Does not matter. Whatever it is, I will double it. And all you have to do to earn it is, step aside.
We don't break deals.
I like how in that sequence that Hondo, not above pointing out the fact that the bounty hunters are paid to be there. They're not doing this for some moral crusade. That's a Jedi thing, right? The bounty hunters are paid. They are bodies for hire. They're people for hire. They're mercenaries for hire, and then that's what this is. And Hondo goes out of his way to, hey, if it's about money, I got money. I'll pay you to leave. And now again, this is when Sugi makes an interesting point that they won't break the deal. They won't barter their contract or break the contract that they've made with the farmers, which shows that Sugi may start at one point in this episode, but when we catch up with her down the road, things have changed. And especially as if we examine her through the lens of Jazamari in those Empire End books, obviously things went badly for Sugi at some point. So it's interesting to see her at this point, and we'll have to kind of note that in subsequent appearances with her down the road. But this exchange with Hondo, I think, is very, very interesting, and it goes back and forth a couple of different times. So let me play the next section of it, because again, this is to me, this is why we're watching the show, because when Hondo's on screen, there's such a fun presence to have in the mix of these Jedis. And then again, the bounty hunters, they have the pirate angle. So we're getting all that underworld stuff that I'm such a big fan of, and I hope all of you kind people that listen to this podcast feel the same way about it as I do, or else you probably just think I'm wasting your time. But we're about to get into a little bit of a standoff, and let's hear how it resolves.
Steady, everyone.
What is your stake anyway, Kenobi?
All we want is a ride to the nearest Republic outpost, and I'm willing to pay you handsomely for it. Twice what you could make selling this crop.
Well, How do you plan to pay me?
A funds transfer when we arrive.
Republic credit? We've been over this before, Kenobi. My associates don't accept that currency.
I'm offering a deal that benefits us all, Hondo. Don't let your greed blind you to that fact.
You know, I like you, Kenobi. But, no one leaves this planet until I get my Silla.
Then I hope you enjoy it here, because you'll be staying a long time, parasite!
You know, this crop has not been harvested. You better hurry, old man, before things start to, die on you.
So Hondo delivers the threat. It's very, very not veiled that there will be consequences if Hondo and his gang do not get the Nycellum. Again, Obi-Wan and the Jedi are not directly involved yet, but they decide that they are going to consult on battle strategy while they are still marooned on the planet. And I guess that's sort of like my hang-up, right? Like I sort of understand where Obi-Wan's coming from. Like he doesn't want to risk potentially bringing the Separatists down on these villagers by the Jedi presence being there any longer than it has to be. But I mean, they're essentially stuck there. There's nowhere for them to go. They'll have to walk, probably a great distance to get to like the nearest spaceport on the surface. So why not just help these people while you're there, and just make this problem go away now? But regardless of all that, I mean, the Jedi will get involved in this conflict directly. But let's listen as they begin to consult some strategy here for the bounty hunters to prepare for how and when Hondo's gang will attack.
When the attack comes, it will come from two fronts. The forest to the south and the ridge to the north. Whatever you do, you must defend both sides.
But there are only 4 of them. How can 4 bounty hunters defend against so many?
So es tu gran tu priste, Krista Foke.
The farmers are right. These bounty hunters don't stand a chance.
We've been over this, Anakin.
You seem to lack confidence in our abilities, young Jedi.
I'm sure you're good at what you do, but you are in way too deep.
Said the Peacekeeper, who fails to keep the peace.
The rift in the galaxy is not our fault. If more worlds would stand up for themselves against the Separatists, this war would have been over long ago.
That's it. We'll just train the villagers to defend themselves.
But we are just simple farmers. Why are we paying bounty hunters to defend us if we are just going to end up doing it ourselves?
Hush, Delani.
Trust me, we'll have you ready.
So this leads into the next sequence of the episode, the training of the farmers to fend for themselves. And listen, it's not going great. They're farmers. I mean, this is a familiar montage. We've seen this all before. Specifically, we've seen this in The Mandalorian when you go back to Chapter 4, back in Season 1, when he's on the planet with the Krill farmers. Krill? I don't think it was Krill. You know what I mean, though. But you know the episode. It's the first one where we meet Cara Dune, and it's Mando and Cara Dune. They're going to help these villagers from another gang of marauders, the ones who have the ATST. And they decide they're going to train these farmers to fight back against the marauders. You get a more of that Kurosawa inspiration in that episode of The Mandalorian. And again, another episode is the Ahsoka Tano episode is very Kurosawa-esque as well, particularly the confrontation at the end of the episode with Ahsoka. But still, for this episode though, so in a lot of ways, I wonder if Dave Filoni was like, hey, let's do another Kurosawa-esque thing, but with The Mandalorian, and in a little bit of a different way. Now, it's a Seven Samurai homage in The Mandalorian, but just know there aren't 7 samurais involved. It's just Mando and Cara Dune. But again, a good episode of that show, and again another nod to Kurosawa as Star Wars progresses. It's like, you honor your roots whenever you can, right? Why not expose another audience, a bigger audience than the people who maybe didn't watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars because it was quote unquote only an animated series and it doesn't matter that much, quote unquote, to some of the talk I've heard from people on the streets that I don't care for when I hear it. Obviously the Mandalorian's audience is probably significantly bigger than people who maybe watched The Clone Wars. So maybe giving them a Kurosawa reference is kind of cool. I don't know. I don't want to get into. I can't begin to understand why they do some of the things, or I shouldn't say it like that. I can't begin to. I don't know. I don't know the way they think about these things, but I love these nods. They make me happy, and again, I love seeing Star Wars pay its respects to what came before and to its inspirations. So yeah, this is when we get the big montage. This is all about getting everyone trained up. We see Seraphis gets revealed shortly after the pirates begin their attack. We see Embo do his sweet moves, his sweet battle moves, and the battle begins. Hondo's gang attacks. The Jedi and the bounty hunters are formidable together. They build lots of traps. They're kind of home aloneing them. They're kind of doing the Ewok battle for Endor stuff in this episode. Annie goes to attack Hondo. Hondo's got a tank at this point, by the way. We didn't mention that Hondo has a tank. He's kind of raining fire down on the villagers, on the Jedi, on the bounty hunters, on the farmers. And all in this effort to get the Nycellum that he stands to make a substantial profit from. And yeah, so Anakin leads the charge. He's going to take care of that tank, because that tank is really ruining everyone's day during this battle. This is a fun battle. I should mention that very, very much off the bat. It's a lot of fun to see this all kind of happen as it plays out. Good stuff back and forth. The pirates moving in, the bounty hunters trying to repel them, and the Jedi doing their thing. You have Ahsoka, you have Anakin, you have Obi-Wan doing what they are supposed to be doing, and that is defending the people. It's interesting when Anakin and Hondo are fighting each other on the tank. The Kowakian Monkey Lizard is driving the tank, which leads to an unstable surface for Anakin to engage in battle on. But he and Hondo have a really neat fight. I really like their fight quite a bit. Hondo has one of those staffs that we've seen the Magna droids have. That's very good at standing up against a lightsaber, and Hondo wields it pretty effectively in his battle with Anakin. Eventually, though, they do fall off the tank. Hondo goes off the edge of a cliff, and Anakin has to save him. But of course, things Hondo may get saved, but he's not gonna doesn't mean he's not gonna take one last chance to try and get her to Skywalker, and it doesn't go well. So that's kind of where our episode ends. But let's close it out proper, shall we?
This effort is no longer profitable!
So that's when Hondo takes off in his Weequay-esque flying saucer ship, and they head back. There was one sound clip I did skip over that I wanted to get to, but I missed it. And it was, it's earlier, it's during the montage sequence, Obi-Wan discussing why it's important for these villagers to learn how to fight and to learn how to stand up for themselves. And again, we've seen so many shows and movies and animation specials, and the Seven Samurai is such a big influence on everything. And again, we all know this plot inside and out, even if you don't know it's from a Kurosawa film. It is, and Obi-Wan sort of explaining the value of why these farmers need to learn how to defend themselves from other marauders, because just even if the Jedi and the bounty hunters hold off Hondo's gang, doesn't mean other bigger, badder, worse marauders won't come next. And these farmers can't keep paying bounty hunters to come and save them every time it happens. So these are skills they do need to learn. And that was a good sequence from the episode that I did sort of gloss over a little bit during the montage scene. But a really rock solid episode. I love the way Hondo bails out, kind of keeps his head up high, kind of makes it sound like this is my decision. We're getting out of here because the profit we're gonna make is just not worth it. So you know what, we're bouncing. We're gonna find something else, an easier score, whatever it's gonna be. And Hondo and his pirates retreat. They're moving on to the next thing. And then our bounty hunters, as a show of thanks to the Jedi, will give them a ride to the nearest outpost and let them get back to the war. And that's the episode. I really dig this one. I think it's a lot of fun. It's it's a solid 8. It's just a good time. If you're a Kurosawa fan like I am, you'll appreciate the references, the nods, the winks, all of that good stuff. It's a quality episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, because it's pretty good stuff. It's pretty good stuff. And that is it for the episode this week. We got some big ones coming up. Big ones in a very specific way. Do we have a big episode coming up next week? And Just wait for that. It's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about talking about the two-parter coming up, starting next week, because it's another episode that pays homage to something else. It's Star Wars doing something else and bringing on some other aspects of the sci-fi fantasy genre into its fold that I really want to get into. So I'm excited to get into that with all of you. And I want to thank you so much for listening, being the great audience that you are, and supporting the Mandovision podcast the way you have over the last year and a half, whatever it is. However long you've been listening, I can't thank you enough for the support. You are all the best, the most important people in my life, except for my wife and my dogs. But you're right up there, I swear. So thank you for listening to the Mandovision podcast. My name is Tom, Nargai Tom. And remember to please reach out to us via social media. Let us know what you're thinking of the show. It's at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If possible or so inclined, 5-star reviews are a great way to help the show. We thank you so much in advance for those. And again, share the show with everyone. People you meet on the street, people you're hanging out with at the bus station, customers coming into your store. Yeah, it's all the same. The guy on the treadmill next to you at the gym. It's cool. We thank you so much for doing that, and you are all the best. We have, I think, if this episode drops on the day I think it drops on, we have one more episode of Bad Batch Friday to look forward to, and I think it's gonna be pretty epic. So I hope you're enjoying Bad Batch Fridays, or even if you're listening to them on Bad Batch Saturday or Bad Batch Sunday, whatever works for your schedule works for me. It's all good. That's the joy of the podcast. You can listen to it whenever you're ready. So we got those coming to an end, and there will be, I think the schedule, I think I've talked about it before, but just to kind of remind you, to reiterate, Star Wars Clone Wars Rewatch Mondays will continue, but I do believe there will be subsequent episodes during the week. There will be specials, whether it's more Bantha tracks, or we'll get into like some holocron stuff. There will be a second episode still on the docket for the week. So get ready for those. We're going to have a lot of fun coming up in August and September. It's going to be a good time. And then, I mean, once we hit September, think about it. The countdown to the Book of Boba Fett is on at that point. Like, once we get into the fall, it's like going to be right around the corner. You know, we should hopefully get a trailer, maybe a release date. Some of that stuff should be coming fairly soon. And again, maybe not in August, but maybe by September. We might have a lot more interesting Star Wars stuff to talk about. And maybe even we get some more deets on the Kenobi show, or the Cassian Andor show. A lot of stuff to get excited about in the Star Wars universe. And we will check in on Star Wars The High Republic at some point in the near future. And yeah, it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, as we are fond of saying on the podcast. So I thank you all so much for listening one more time. All right, now let's get out of here. You all get on with your day, get on with your week. Take care of each other, stay safe, stay strong, and come back soon. And remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.